I'd like to welcome to the studio Avinash Balachandran. He is from Toyota and he is fresh off the press from doing his keynote speech. This idea of AI, I've noticed a lot of hype surrounding it. So I'd like you to separate the hype from the reality of AI.
I think a lot of hype has come actually pretty recently, especially with sort of the advent of generative AI, things like ChatGPT. And I think a big part of it is based on this mistaken understanding that AI is reaching near human levels of thought. And the reality is that generative AI is really amazing, but it truly is a statistical machine. And true human thought and inspiration is more than a statistical exercise. And so I think there's still a long way to go before AI reaches humans' levels of thought, but that doesn't mean it can't be useful. And in particular, I think people are looking at it from fields, from diverse as banking to technology to robotics to education. But specifically in the auto industry, I think there are lots of ways we can think about using AI as a way to kind of make the experience for our customers better in cars, make the experience of building and manufacturing cars better for our workers. And I gave a few of those examples in my talk as well.
Okay, so yeah, give us some specifics on how Toyota is using AI right now.
Yeah, great question. So we're trying to use it in a multitude of different ways. And I'll also emphasize here that I don't think we have the perfect solution. I don't think anybody does. So we're really investigating the space, much like other players. In the vehicle experience kind of bucket, if you think about the way that people have interacted with cars, it really hasn't changed for the last 75 or 80 years. So the same way, steering wheel and pedals that you have in a car, existed 80 years ago. And in this paradigm where a driver interacts with the car is really not that dissimilar from sort of a simple unintelligent tool, right? It's like a hammer or a bicycle. You put in some steering and throttle and the car does a thing. But with sort of the advent of AI and sort of these latest technologies that are surrounding it, maybe there's a way we can rethink the relationship between a driver and a car, which is now becoming really what we call an embodied intelligence, because it's getting smarter and smarter with new technologies that are getting added. Can we think about new kinds of paradigms where maybe it's no longer sort of just a simple tool, but we can think of a paradigm like a horse and a rider. So the horse is like the car, the rider is like the driver. And when you're riding a horse, you're not actually telling the horse exactly where to put its legs. It kind of figures out your intent and is able to do that. Another example is partner dancing. You have a lead partner and a follow partner, and you can both execute these maneuvers together. So maybe there are ways in which we can change this paradigm. And so one of the ways that we're thinking about doing that at Toyota is what we call, there are two ways that we're thinking about doing that. One is Guardian, which is this idea of AI-supported driving. So the car actually helps you perform a task, particularly giving you the skills when you need it. And the example that I showed in my talk is avoiding a sudden car that's popping out in front of you. Most people find that challenging to navigate around. And maybe this system can actually help you by giving you the appropriate feedback, helping you control the car using steering and throttle to help you go around that. So that's one way we do that. The other way is what we call driving sensei, which is this idea of using AI to actually teach you to get better. A lot of people can use some sort of like coaching to get better and get more confident with driving. And that's another way that we're thinking about doing that. So that's examples within, making the car experience better. And there are others that I talked about making manufacturing better and design better as well.
So as you go about developing and experimenting, how do you make sure that safety stays top of mind?
This is a key consideration at Toyota. We take safety very seriously, and there's quite a few things that we do to make sure that's the case. One is that we have a very strong sort of safety culture that permeates our entire engineering workforce, so everybody's thinking about it as they develop features or products to make sure that it's actually incorporated in a safe way. The other one is we're really looking at ways in which the person is still in the loop, whether that's the driver, the designer, the engineer, the manufacturing worker. We're really looking at ways in which they are still in the loop. They are still in control of the output of the AI. So this way, the human is still very much in charge of safety and sort of the elements, so in a similar way than it was before as well.
Well, and what you were saying before about teaching us, actually help us help ourselves kind of situation.
Exactly. So we're really focused on this idea of making you better. So there's three things that I shared in my talk. So when generally people think about AI, they think about AI sort of replacing someone. That's like an autonomous car or robot that's taking your job. What I actually propose is three ways in which we can interact maybe in a different way. So one is that it supports you. That's sort of this idea of Guardian that I mentioned, where it actually helps you do a specific task. Second one is that it teaches you. And that's this idea of driving sensei, very much like giving you the appropriate skills to get better. The last one is you teaching it. And so that one we haven't talked about here, but this idea, that a factory worker, for example, could demonstrate a few times how to do a specific task, and a robot just could take that demonstration and actually do it then. Very much like it's as if you had your own little intern in the factory, doing all the things you didn't want to do, for example.
Like, go get me coffee.
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was an intern a few times. Okay, so what other next-gen technologies are on the horizon?
Yeah, so I think a lot of what we're looking at Toyota is sort of powered by AI. So those are things like new experiences in the car, new kinds of interaction modalities. I think that's really one of the things that generative AI has taught us is the power of natural language. So in the past, we haven't really thought about natural language, English, for example, as a medium of communication to technology. We've really thought about programming languages and things like that. And I think this ability to use language to interact with technology has really opened up a new way in which both consumers and our employees can interact with generative AI systems to kind of build better experiences in cars or better experiences in vehicle development. Another one is sort of using maybe AR and VR technology as a way of interfacing more clearly with generative AI to help people kind of experience and get this holistic interaction with an interaction like you would have in a person. We don't, for example, just interact through language.
Yeah.
We actually interact through gestures and other things, and maybe there's a way to communicate that as well. And the third one is maybe looking at ways in which we can actually improve our ability to make these AIs more cheaply and more effectively, looking at enabling technologies that do that, things like quantum computing and stuff like that.
So you're here at WCX, you're speaking to your peers, or people who generally know what's going on.
Yep.
Do you ever wish that you could speak to the consumer? And if you could speak to the consumer, what do you want them to know?
What I would say is how we started this interview. There is a lot of hype around AI, and I think it's really important, and we as people that are actually selling these products, it's important for us to be responsible in the way that we communicate what an AI can do, what it can't do, its potentials, making sure it's safe, making sure we reduce bias, reduce hallucinations. And so if I were to kind of be able to communicate to a customer, it would really focus on those elements, trying to separate the hype from the reality and making sure they really understand the capabilities of the system that they're getting so they're using it in an appropriate way.
Avinash, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, thank you.
Best of luck and have a great week.
Awesome, thank you so much.